I promised a quick video for one of a patient of mine, and this is regarding medical cannabis coming for ballot. It's question number 4, and the Mass Medical Society has decided that they are going to vote no. And I also asked one of my colleagues, and he said he's going to vote no. So I am going to vote yes, and I'm going to tell you why. I went on a sabbatical. I did a 31-month research on this project. So one of the things I found is I also do addiction medicine, and I'm also involved with medical cannabis. The reason I got involved with medical cannabis is one of my patients said if I cannot keep him legal, it would be very hard for him with his recovery. And I agreed, and I decided to work with him. And I find the attitude about addiction switches when you make it legal. Because the first thing I look for in recovery is not lying, not getting anything off the streets, and not sharing medications. So when you try to create a funneling process, it creates an attitude of secrecy and cheating. You don't want that, okay, in recovery. So that's the first thing, and that is why I'm going to vote yes. That's one which is like a neutral, like a social behavior. Now let's come back to medical purpose. The medical purpose is not what is in the ballot. That is not what we are voting for. It's just legalization. But in recovery, it's a very huge shift in thinking. And I use homeopathic cannabinoids. I got certified as a homeopath. And with homeopath, you can dilute your cannabinoids up to 24 times before it's supposed to not be in a molecular form, only in energy form. I did dilutions up to 15, and I could still see cannabinoids when we tested. But when we diluted up to 18, the cannabinoids disappeared. So somewhere between 15 and 18 dilutions is when the molecular structure disappears. But during this process, what I learned was the THCA gets converted to THCV when you keep cooking and diluting. And the reason it's important is when you keep the heat high, you end up creating more THCV, which is an appetite suppressant, and it's good for weight loss. But whereas when you do THCA, which requires a different type of a temperature, and it's also a shorter process, then it actually is helpful for cancer patients because it creates apoptosis. That is one thing. The second thing is when you do not cook it with high heat, but use succussion method, like almost like a liposomal process, you preserve the terpene, which actually creates an entourage effect and heals the cellular exchange mechanism, ionic exchange mechanism. So it also, terpenes has its own antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancerous process. That is another reason I feel cannabis in a minute dilution also can work. Okay, this is another reason I'm voting yes. The third reason, in addiction, interestingly, Suboxone taper is very, very hard. So when you do cannabis tinctures with 2 milligrams Suboxone, we create a dilution of 0.05 milligram per ml, which is per 20 drops. We were able to get people off Suboxone and completely away from everything via cannabis tinctures. So there are like multiple reasons it makes sense for me to do cannabis for detoxification, for acute withdrawal symptoms, and stabilizing them with acute Suboxone taper, and then going on maintenance. So it actually works better when they have these as an access availability. The fourth problem, I was trying to rebuild my office, And my town told me the first thing they need is an architectural plan before they would allow me to rebuild my building. And I'm thinking, as a medical doctor, have we ever asked anybody for a genetic testing for methylation properties before you even have them take any medication? It doesn't make sense for me to do a medicine when we have no idea what their methylation status is. Because people who are under methylators, when they have issues, when they take cannabis, it heals them, like autism, ADD, people with vaccination issues. They should not be compromised because they have, if they had a normal methylation status, but if their methylation is a problem, it affects them, okay? But whereas the over-methylator, which is another group of people who get paranoid when they do cannabis, for them, they need high-dose vitamin C. The branch we need to focus on is International Society of Orthomolecular Medicine, which is biochemically restructuring a person and then healing them. And I think this field is totally overlooked by us. If you want, you can take a look at isom.ca, which is International Society of Orthomolecular Medicine .Canada, CA. And they have, like, lots of articles about orthomolecular medicine. And I feel methylation is a huge missing puzzle. If we do not understand how a person methylates, then it doesn't matter whether it's a medicine or a cannabis or whatever they take, they're going to react differently than normal. So I feel we have not fixed the problem basically about chronic illness, and you cannot deny somebody which they use it to cope. But there is one problem with cannabis which I find is important to take into consideration. That is, if they have baseline mood issue, they're not able to hold a job together, and they are totally unraveled in their life, then it doesn't work well. And how would you know? So that's why medical cannabis is a different piece. But let's assume that is a totally different area, and that's not what we are voting for. Please vote yes for medical cannabis, because we can go further in research and we can really do well for people without chemicals. If we can just focus on orthomolecular medicine and medical cannabis accessibility for people who really need it, okay? And please, if you need to connect with me, my YouTube channel is healnow.tv, and I'll keep recording new videos. And if you have any comments, please post it there, or my email is drvasubrown@gmail.com. Thank you.